Grace, who is that guy?
Elliot, Loudermilk.
Okay. Call security. Have them change his locks, clean out his desk, and toss him out of the building.
Oh, he's fired?
Behind the glittering holiday lights and quirky humor of Scrooged lies a world that most fans never saw. The 1988 film may feel like a playful twist on Dickens, but the production itself was filled with tension, dangerous stunts, unexpected injuries, abandoned ideas, and a level of chaos that surprised even the cast. What appeared on screen as dark comedy was often the result of real conflict, real exhaustion, and creative battles that shaped every frame. This documentary-style deep dive uncovers the strange truths behind the film, from risky effects to explosive disagreements, from improvised moments to shocking cut material. Scrooged carries more secrets than most Christmas classics. Here is the story behind the spectacle. The set was so chaotic that Bill Murray almost quit multiple times. When Scrooge began filming, Bill Murray had just returned to acting after several years away. He expected a flexible comedic process similar to his earlier collaborations. Instead, he found a set filled with tension, constant rewrites, and disagreements over tone. Murray later explained that the script felt unfinished, and that the production moved forward before key emotional beats were fully refined. Because of this, he often clashed with director Richard Donner, who pushed for a harsher comedic rhythm than Murray preferred. Crew members have confirmed that Murray walked off set more than once during production because he felt the pacing, tone, and structure were not working. In a later interview, Donner admitted that he and Murray argued frequently. Murray wanted scenes slowed down with more character depth, while Donner prioritized energy and satire. The conflict created a stressful environment, and Murray considered stepping away at several points. His frustration fed into his performance, giving Frank Cross an unpredictable edge that audiences still remember. The chaotic atmosphere shaped the film in unexpected ways. Much of what viewers interpret as comedic intensity was rooted in real behind-the-scenes exhaustion. Richard Donner's dark set atmosphere nearly broke the cast. Richard Donner was known for high-energy filmmaking, but Scrooge became one of his most stressful directing experiences. The movie blends dark satire with holiday warmth, and Donner insisted on pushing the darker elements much harder. Cast members later said that Donner approached the film like an action thriller rather than a comedy. His intensity surprised many of the comedic performers, especially those accustomed to looser and more collaborative sets. Several actors noted that Donner demanded aggressive physical performances, fast delivery, and big emotional swings. This created a pressure-filled atmosphere that made the cast feel constantly on edge. Karen Allen and Bobcat Goldthwait both mentioned in interviews that the pace and emotional tone were much heavier than they expected when they joined the project. Donner himself later acknowledged that the film's tone was unusually harsh and that the cast felt the strain of his direction. The dark atmosphere affected morale. Combined with studio pressure and a constantly evolving script, the cast found themselves fighting to maintain comedic rhythm while adapting to Donner's demanding approach. The final product reflects that mix of strain and brilliance, giving Scrooged its distinctive chaotic tone. The Ghost of Christmas Past's taxi scene nearly turned fatal. The chaotic energy of Scrooged reached a dangerous peak during the stunt sequences involving the Ghost of Christmas Past. David Johansen, who played the ghost, had several scenes inside a wild taxi rigged for violent motions and rapid stops. One stunt required the taxi to lurch forward while Murray was thrown inside the cabin. According to interviews, a mechanical malfunction caused the rig to jerk harder than expected, nearly sending Murray into the dashboard at full force. Stunt coordinators reported that the scene was controlled but risky, and the unexpected jolt created real fear on set. Crew members had to stop filming and reset the rig after confirming Murray had not been seriously hurt. Murray joked in later interviews that the scene felt more dangerous than some of his action sequences in other films. Johansen also recalled that the intensity of the stunt made it one of the most nerve-wracking days of shooting. These scenes were meant to appear chaotic on screen, but the near accident revealed how physically demanding the film had become. The production pushed practical stunts to their limits, adding authenticity while putting the performers at risk. Bill Murray and Carol Kane's violent scenes were real enough to cause injury. The physical comedy between Bill Murray and Carol Kane became one of the most memorable elements of Scrooged, but the scenes were far rougher behind the scenes. Kane, who played the ghost of Christmas Present, had to perform multiple takes where she yanked Murray's hair, slapped him, kicked him, and pulled him across sets. The choreography required precise timing, but the intensity led to real injuries. Kane once pulled Murray's lips so hard that production had to pause filming for several days. Kane later revealed that she cried between takes because she feared she was hurting Murray. Murray also admitted that some of the hits were stronger than expected, though he never blamed Kane. Instead, he said the physicality came from the film's chaotic tone and the push for exaggerated comedic violence. Donner encouraged big physical gestures, which created scenes that were both hilarious and hazardous. The injuries were not severe, but they left a lasting mark on the production. Kane described the experience as exhausting and emotionally draining, while Murray credited the roughness with helping shape the film's frantic energy. The comedy felt authentic because much of the struggle was real. A deleted scene involving a nuclear holocaust was removed for being too traumatizing. One of the strangest and darkest ideas ever developed for a Christmas film was a deleted sequence from Scrooged involving a nuclear apocalypse. Early drafts included a dramatic broadcast in which global tension escalated into a catastrophic nuclear strike. The sequence was meant to be part of the film's cynical commentary on media exploitation and fear-driven television. However, test audiences reacted so negatively that the studio removed the scene entirely. Writers Mitch Glazer and Michael O'Donoghue confirmed that the scene existed in the script and was even partially filmed. The tone was far darker than the rest of the movie and pushed the satire into disturbing territory. Paramount executives determined that it risked overshadowing the story and derailing the film's holiday spirit. Given that Scrooged already leaned toward dark comedy, the studio worried that including a nuclear holocaust would alienate viewers. The footage has never been released publicly, but the writers and several crew members have described it in interviews. It remains one of the most bizarre pieces of lost Christmas cinema history, and a reminder of how far Scrooged almost went into extreme satire. The studio forced major script changes days before filming. As production approached, Scrooged entered what several writers called a state of controlled panic. Paramount executives were not satisfied with the tone of the script and demanded major revisions only days before cameras rolled. The studio wanted a more commercially friendly holiday comedy, while the writers and Donner wanted sharper satire. This led to extensive rewrites that left the cast studying new dialogue between takes and struggling to understand the emotional through line of the story. Bill Murray stated in interviews that the script felt unfinished from the start, largely because the last-minute changes disrupted the structure. Michael O'Donoghue, known for his biting humor, was frustrated by studio interference and eventually distanced himself from the final cut. Mitch Glazer confirmed that several scenes were reworked on set, creating ongoing confusion. These competing visions shaped the final film in unpredictable ways. The sudden rewrites forced the cast to rely heavily on improvisation, especially Murray, who filled gaps with spontaneous lines. The result was a film that felt alive and chaotic, but also reflected the pressure of its turbulent development. Bill Murray's brothers were cast as a creative experiment. One of the most unusual casting choices in Scrooged was the decision to bring in 3 of Bill Murray's real-life brothers to play supporting roles. Brian Doyle Murray, John Murray, and Joel Murray all appear in the film, making Scrooge one of the rare Hollywood productions to feature 4 siblings in the same project. Richard Donner believed the dynamic would add authenticity to the story, especially since Murray's character carries deep family frustration. Brian Doyle Murray played Bill's on-screen father in flashbacks, while John and Joel appeared in smaller roles. Donner encouraged the casting because he thought the natural tension and humor among the brothers would help ground the emotional moments. However, working with family created a challenge. The brothers had different acting styles and varying comfort levels in front of the camera, which occasionally slowed production. Murray later joked that coordinating all 4 siblings for scenes required almost as much patience as filming with ghosts and stunt rigs. The casting experiment added an unexpected layer of realism to the film, as the family scenes captured genuine chemistry. It also became one of the most memorable behind-the-scenes decisions, highlighting Donner's willingness to take creative risks. The film used experimental makeup that left actors in pain. Scrooge relied heavily on elaborate practical effects, and many of them required extensive makeup that pushed the limits of what was comfortable for actors. The most notable example came from the Ghost of Christmas Future, whose decaying skeletal appearance was achieved through a combination of prosthetics, puppetry, and early animatronic techniques. The suit was heavy, restrictive, and extremely hot under the set lights. The makeup team also faced challenges with Jacob Marley-style ghosts and decomposing characters who appeared during Frank Cross's hallucinations. Some performers spent 6 to 8 hours in makeup chairs before stepping onto set. Several actors reported discomfort due to the adhesives, latex materials, and the weight of attached props. In interviews, makeup artist Tom Berman described days when actors needed breaks simply to rest their necks or cool their skin from the heat trapped inside prosthetics. These experimental techniques created unforgettable visuals, but they came at the cost of physical strain. Scrooge's effects were ambitious for 1988, and the makeup team pushed the technology of the time as far as it could go. The results helped the film stand out, but they left a lasting impression on the performers who endured the toughest designs. Several ghost effects were done with surreal practical technology that malfunctioned. The supernatural elements of Scrooged relied heavily on practical effects that were experimental for their time. The production crew used puppetry, mechanical rigs, early animatronics, and optical tricks to bring the ghosts to life. The Ghost of Christmas Future, for example, required a massive mechanical structure that housed a performer inside, controlling movements through internal levers and cables. The machinery malfunctioned several times during production, causing unpredictable jerks and unexpected pauses that startled the cast. Other effects used fog chambers, reflective screens, and mechanical arms designed to simulate supernatural forces. Crew members later recalled that these devices frequently broke down or needed constant adjustment. Some of the malfunctions made scenes more chaotic than intended, forcing Richard Donner to adapt shots on the fly. Bill Murray joked that the ghosts seemed just as confused as everyone else because their mechanical components behaved like unpredictable characters. Although these effects were unpredictable, they gave the film a handmade, surreal quality that modern CGI cannot replicate. The imperfections contributed to the eerie, comedic atmosphere that makes Scrooged visually distinct. The challenges also show how ambitious the production was during a period when digital tools were not available to support complex ghost characters. Carol Kane's costume injured her multiple times. Carol Kane's whimsical appearance as the Ghost of Christmas Present hides the fact that her costume caused several painful injuries during production. Designed to give her a fairy-like floating presence, the costume relied on heavy fabric, stiff wiring, and sparkling accessories that tugged on her body as she moved. Kane revealed in interviews that the weight of the dress caused shoulder and back pain, and the wires required for her entrance scenes often yanked her upward abruptly. One of the most difficult elements was the wire work used to suspend her during scenes where she hits or tosses Bill Murray around. The harness dug into her ribs, and a mistimed lift once left her bruised for days. She also struggled with props attached to her costume that struck her face when the wires shifted unexpectedly. Despite the injuries, Kane delivered a lively and eccentric performance that became one of the film's highlights. She later explained that the physical discomfort made her even more committed to the chaotic energy required for the role. Her experience shows how physical comedy in Scrooged required real resilience and considerable pain behind the scenes. Bill Murray ad-libbed so much dialogue that editors struggled to shape the film. Bill Murray was already known for improvisation, but Scrooged pushed his ad-libbing skills to new levels. Due to script uncertainty and constant rewrites, Murray relied heavily on spontaneous lines to find rhythm and emotional connection in scenes. His improvisations were so extensive that some scenes had dozens of alternate takes, each with different jokes, reactions, or character beats. Richard Donner encouraged this approach because he believed it brought life to the story, but it created major challenges during editing. Editors later explained that the raw footage contained vast amounts of material that differed drastically from take to take. Creating a cohesive narrative required sorting through hours of alternate lines and shaping them into a consistent tone. Because Murray changed lines with each performance, matching continuity between shots became difficult. Murray's improvisation played a major role in shaping Frank Cross as an unhinged, yet strangely endearing character. Many of the film's most memorable moments, including his frantic monologues and sarcastic asides, came directly from his spontaneous instincts. The chaotic editing process ultimately reflected the improvisational spirit that defined the production. The famous Feed the World rant was mostly improvised. The finale of Scrooged features Bill Murray delivering an emotional and chaotic monologue in front of a live broadcast audience. The speech builds into a passionate plea where Frank Cross encourages viewers to reach out, reconnect, and change their lives. The now iconic Feed the World moment was not fully scripted. Murray improvised much of it on set, guided only by a rough outline of emotional beats. Richard Donner allowed Murray to explore the monologue freely because earlier versions felt too stiff. Multiple cameras filmed simultaneously to capture whatever emerged. Crew members recalled that Murray delivered several completely different versions, some comedic, some sincere, and some wildly unpredictable. The final cut blended moments from various takes to create the intense, sprawling speech audiences know today. Paramount executives were initially uncertain about the scene because Murray's improvisations stretched far beyond the script. However, the emotional spontaneity became one of the film's standout moments. Murray's raw energy helped the finale achieve a blend of humor and sincerity that still resonates decades later. A live mouse refused to cooperate and stalled production. One of the most unexpectedly difficult moments during production involved a simple gag with a live mouse. In one scene, Frank Cross attempts to decorate a tiny mouse with antlers made of glued pasta. The idea was meant to be a quick comedic moment, but the mouse refused to sit still or cooperate with handlers. According to crew interviews, several takes were ruined because the mouse kept jumping away, chewing the props, or knocking over set pieces. The production tried multiple techniques to calm the mouse, including food incentives and gentle restraints, but nothing worked. Bill Murray later joked that the mouse was the most temperamental performer on set. The team eventually managed to secure the shot, but not without wasting significant time and patience. Animal trainers noted that working with small rodents is often unpredictable because they react strongly to light, noise, and the unfamiliar environment of a film set. The mouse incident became a running joke among the cast, symbolizing how even the smallest elements of Scrooged seemed determined to complicate production. It also demonstrated how practical gags, although charming on screen, can become unexpectedly difficult behind the scenes. The frozen worker makeup took over 7 hours to apply. One of the most memorable visual gags in Scrooged features a frozen corpse-like worker discovered in a subterranean area beneath the television studio. The chilling effect required an intricate makeup design that blended frost textures, pale skin color, and careful prosthetics. Special effects artist Tom Berman explained that the makeup process took more than 7 hours to complete. The actor had to sit completely still while layers of pigments, ice crystals, adhesives, and synthetic frost were applied. The challenge increased under the hot studio lights. The makeup had to remain solid and convincing without melting or cracking. Berman recalled moments where the team had to retouch sections because the heat softened some of the materials. To make the corpse appear stiff, the actor had to maintain an uncomfortable pose for extended periods, adding physical strain to the ordeal. Although the scene appears for only a few moments in the film, it became one of the most demanding makeup tasks of the entire production. It demonstrates how even brief comedic moments required extensive preparation, technical skill, and significant endurance from the performers. The Ghost of Christmas Future's giant skeleton suit nearly crushed the performer. The Ghost of Christmas Future was designed as a towering skeletal figure that looms over Frank Cross with frightening presence. Achieving this effect required a large animatronic suit supported by a performer inside. The structure was heavy, complex, and difficult to balance. In interviews, effects technicians revealed that the weight distribution inside the suit was uneven, which made it unstable during movement. The performer struggled to keep the upper frame from tipping forward. On at least one occasion, the suit began collapsing inward due to mechanical strain, forcing crew members to rush in and stabilize it before the performer was hurt. The actor later explained that visibility inside the suit was extremely limited, and the internal levers that operated the skull and arms created pressure points on his shoulders. The difficulties with the suit required the team to adjust choreography and camera angles to reduce the risk of injury. Although the final scenes look smooth and controlled, they were the result of careful planning and frequent technical fixes. The mechanical unpredictability gave the ghost an eerie stiffness on screen, but it came at the cost of safety concerns behind the scenes. The film's marketing campaign was considered too mean for Christmas. When Paramount began promoting Scrooged, early posters featured Bill Murray with a sinister smile and a burning cigar while a skeletal hand holds a match. The image was intended as dark humor, but several theater owners complained that the marketing felt too abrasive for the holiday season. Industry reports indicated that some promotional materials were rejected because they leaned too heavily into cynicism rather than Christmas spirit. Marketing executives defended the campaign by saying it reflected the film's satirical tone. However, they admitted that finding the right balance was difficult. The studio faced the challenge of selling a movie that combined holiday themes with biting humor, and the marketing sometimes confused audiences who expected a more traditional Christmas story. Some critics argued that the advertisements misrepresented the film, contributing to the mixed reception during its initial release. Despite the controversy, the bold imagery became part of the film's identity. Fans later embraced the unconventional tone, and the poster is now considered a cult classic piece of holiday film marketing. It serves as a reminder of how Scrooge challenged the expectations of seasonal cinema. One crew member believed the set was haunted. During night shoots on the Scrooge sound stages, strange noises and malfunctioning equipment led some crew members to speculate that the set was haunted. One crew member in particular, who worked with lighting rigs, reported hearing footsteps in empty hallways and experiencing sudden drops in temperature around certain props. While these experiences were likely the result of ventilation drafts and mechanical issues, they added an eerie atmosphere to an already tense production. Several crew interviews have mentioned that the haunted rumors became a running conversation during late-night work. Unexplained flickering lights and sudden power failures contributed to the sense of unease. Because Scrooged involved many ghost-themed effects and disturbing makeup designs, the environment sometimes felt unnervingly immersive. Although these experiences never disrupted production, they influenced the mood of night shoots and added an extra layer of tension. The cast and crew often joked about the possibility of a real ghost wandering among the sets, which helped to relieve stress during demanding scenes. The stories remain part of Scrooged folklore and contribute to the film's reputation for strangeness, both on-screen and behind the scenes. Murray's romantic scenes needed reshoots because of tone issues. The romantic subplot between Frank Cross and Claire Phillips was meant to provide emotional balance to the film's darker comedic tone. However, early cuts of the movie revealed that several romantic scenes came across as too sharp or sarcastic because of Murray's intense performance. Richard Donner explained that Murray was so wrapped in the frantic energy of Frank Cross that shifting into softer emotional moments became difficult. As a result, Paramount requested reshoots to soften the romantic dynamic. Karen Allen returned to film new scenes that emphasized warmth, tenderness, and shared history. Editors later said these reshoots were essential for grounding the story because the original scenes felt disconnected from the emotional arc. Murray acknowledged that the character's transformation required clearer emotional contrast, and the reshoots helped him explore a gentler side of Frank Cross. The final romantic moments appear effortless on screen, but they were the result of careful recalibration. This adjustment helped the film maintain a balance between satire and sentimentality. The final crowd scene was filmed with almost no script. The climactic broadcast scene, where Frank Cross delivers his impassioned transformation speech, remains one of the most memorable moments in Scrooged. What most fans never realized is that the scene was filmed with almost no structured script. Richard Donner instructed the cast and extras to respond naturally to Bill Murray's improvised monologue, which created an environment of spontaneous energy. Multiple cameras recorded simultaneously, so the editors could capture whatever moments felt genuine. The extras were encouraged to cheer, interrupt, and interact based on their instincts. Some reactions came from real surprise because Murray kept changing the tone of each take. Crew members described the atmosphere as controlled chaos, with Murray delivering a different emotional pitch every time. This approach helped to the finale feel alive and unpredictable, but it created serious challenges for the editing team. Cutting together a coherent sequence required carefully stitching reactions that matched the emotional rhythm of Murray's shifting delivery. The lack of a formal script allowed the final message of the film to feel honest and unrehearsed. Viewers responded strongly to this raw energy, and the scene has since become one of the most quoted and replayed moments in Bill Murray's career. The snow was made from a foam chemical that irritated actors' eyes. Creating a winter landscape inside studio soundstages required artificial snow, and the production of Scrooged used a foam-based compound that produced light, drifting flakes. While the snow looked convincing on camera, it caused problems for actors who had to spend long hours under the falling foam. Several performers noted that the material irritated their eyes and dried out their skin. Crew members also reported that the foam accumulated quickly, requiring constant cleanup between takes. Artificial snow effects of the late 1980s often relied on chemical mixtures that were not as refined or skin-friendly as modern versions. The foam used on Scrooged clumped under hot lights and sometimes stuck to wigs, costumes, or exposed skin. Some extras experienced mild coughing fits when large quantities of foam were released during wide shots. Despite these inconveniences, the production continued to use the foam because it photographed well and offered the floating quality Richard Donner wanted for key scenes. The discomfort was a common behind-the-scenes reality for winter films of that era, revealing how visual authenticity often came with practical challenges. Critics initially rejected the film before it became a cult classic. When Scrooge debuted in 1988, critical reception was mixed to negative. Many reviewers felt the film was too cynical or too chaotic for a Christmas story. Some critics argued that Bill Murray's performance was uneven because of the tonal inconsistencies caused by behind-the-scenes conflict. Others believed that the dark humor overshadowed the emotional core. Publications such as the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times expressed concern that the movie lacked balance between satire and sentiment. However, audiences gradually embraced the film over the following years. Home video, cable television reruns, and holiday programming brought Scrooge to a wider audience that appreciated its unconventional tone. Viewers connected with the blend of sharp comedy, supernatural oddity, and heartfelt transformation. The film eventually developed a strong cult following and is now considered a staple of alternative Christmas cinema. What began as a divisive experiment evolved into a holiday favorite admired for its originality. The shift in public perception highlights how Scrooged was ahead of its time, blending elements that modern audiences now appreciate in offbeat seasonal films. Scrooge stands today as one of the most unusual holiday films ever made, a movie shaped as much by its chaos behind the scenes as by its creativity on screen. What began as a troubled production filled with rewrites, tension, risky stunts, and unpredictable effects grew into a story that audiences continue to revisit every year. The film's strange power lies in its imperfections, the raw energy that came from actors pushing through discomfort, and a crew determined to craft something bold. Decades later, viewers see more than a dark comedy. They see a rare Christmas film that embraces madness, hope, redemption, and the unpredictable journey of making art under pressure. Scrooged earned its legacy through grit and honesty.